All right. Oh, that really worked out for the.
That's where I roll for the banner. Okay.
Come on in, we're just getting
If nothing else, you can
started.
download it
I'm
again.
gonna do it. So, welcome to Game On Expo. We are Lost Tribes Gaming. We're a regular, normal gaming group, does tabletop RPGs. And we stream on Twitch at Lost Tribes Gaming. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook. We play several different games. Currently, we are playing D&D 5th Edition, Marvel Superheroes, a mixed World of Darkness game, and Star Wars. Star Wars. I'm Brittany. I'm sort of moderating. I also am an artist and I do cosplay. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jorge Santiago. I go by George. I've been playing with Lost Tribes Gaming for I don't know how long. Long time. I draw comics. I'm also an educator. I teach at Kennesaw State University. Yeah, I love fantasy and I love gaming.
I'm Abby Robinson. I play with Lost Tribes Gaming. I also play with a podcast called Tones of the Chaos Bard. We, this is our shirts. I am a mother of 3, and I've been playing with Lost Tribes Gaming. I'm the youngest one here. 2.5 years?
We first met you 2022.
Holy moly. 4 years,
Yeah.
apparently.
So almost 4 years.
You're not as young as you thought you were. I know. Wow. I've not been playing for so long. Yeah, we'll go on to you.
Yep. And I'm David. I am the DM for Tomes of the Chaos Bard. I am piggybacking off of their success onto this panel. I've been DMing the Tomes of the Chaos Bard for 5 years now. It's been a very exciting thing. I am Abby's husband. And yeah, I'm here to help support her and give my 2 cents on this matter.
And where can they find Tones of Chaos Bard?
You can find us on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple. We appreciate any subscriptions, and we've been going on for 5 years, so there's a lot of background.
And you're also a musical. Oh
Yes,
yes,
original songs
we have
and
original
music.
songs and music. We're also not explicit and family friendly. Our kids like to listen to it as they fall asleep, even though they're like, "Mom, this bit was scary." So, I also do all the art for the podcast for the most part. We're also on YouTube, but there's no visual, it's just a picture.
Oh, and real quick, before we go past that, do you guys have your swag here? No. Okay. Well, we have free stuff for Lost Tribes Gaming up here if anybody would like to pick up some.
We
Just
have
for
magnets,
fixing
keychains,
those,
and buttons.
So, my name is Jerome Lambert. I am the founder of Lost Tribes Gaming. I guess you could say I was in it from the beginning. But ultimately, how it all came together is I've been running games for almost 40 years now, a long time. And after moving out to Phoenix, Arizona, out here back in 2001, I just started meeting more and more people, and eventually it got to the point where as your gamer, you're probably going to come up here or I should say the next panel later on today on how to build a game. But over time, I noticed that I was wanting certain types of people, whether they be new or old, like I had established friends. And in some cases, it came about like I met Brittany through Star Wars clubs. I met George through Brittany because they went to college together. I met Abby and subsequently her husband Dave through another family podcast venture. This guy over here off to my right, I met longer ago.
Oh, no worries.
He and I met actually when I was running a gaming club out of a comic book store way back in the mid-90s. So it's all been kind of like this really fun amalgamation of new friends, old friends, kind of meshing together and coming together for games. So it's been a lot of fun. His name is Mike Combs. So he's actually been, we actually didn't see each other for quite a while because our lives took us in different directions. And then eventually found him on Facebook again, started chatting, and I had openings with a home D&D game as of that point. And he didn't have anything going on at that moment. And I was like, you know, I got a great group of players. Why don't you come hang out with us and see if it gels? And now we're all doing this together in Phoenix, Arizona, several years later. So that was about you.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction. I think I'm the only guy ever without an arty job. I work in IT and DevOps and project management, which is actually what I was hoping to bring to the world building session. So.
Oh, David's an electrician, so
Oh,
not
yeah.
an arty job.
He runs a gaming podcast.
I do. But I'm in HR, so it's not really artsy.
So,
You're just good with people.
so this panel is about world building, kind of about where you want to start when you are interested in building a game, starting a game. And we are interested in what you guys want to talk about, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand. If there's anything specific you'd like us to cover, raise your hand now, and we'll see how we can work it in.
Yeah, to emphasize that, just before we get to you real quick, both panels are like that, primarily because that's what the con wants us to do, but honestly, we get more out of it when you guys throw questions at us. Maybe stuff happening in your game or your characters or things that you're trying to tackle in a creation sense. We, for lack of a better term, that feeds us. We want to help as best as we can.
We want to be a resource for you
Yeah.
in building your own game. So, yeah, what's your question?
How do you know when enough world building is enough? Especially if you're trying to make a world where your characters can go.
That is
Plan one
the
thing
first
and then
question.
end up going completely off the rails.
Funny enough, that is the first question on our thing. So.
Good question. Good question. Survey says.
That was a good idea to do the plant.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, is it actually necessary to build out your whole world before you start?
So David, take it away.
I say no. And the reason why I say no is because when I started creating my game, I went all out. I tried to create the Pantheon, but it was everything. But I found out that the funnest way to do it is get a basic idea. Just basic. Where kind of you want to go. With me, I started off with my villain. Who I wanted to be the bad guy, what their role was, and then I talked to my players. We had the Session Zero. Have you guys heard of a Session Zero before? For those who haven't, it's pretty much you get together, you kind of create your characters, create the world that they're in, that they start off in, together. And then I introduce the villain, kind of where things are going, unless you want to keep it secret. Then you kind of introduce them as an innocent NPC. And then I figure out what kind of their backgrounds are, if they do have, and kind of mold the world around them. I do have to throw in my own special spices to it, but I mold it around their thing. Because I know if you follow our podcast or listen to it, they totally go the opposite direction of where I had it planned, which is every game. It's every game. But I was able to add some of those elements that I had over here into their thing. Does anybody else want to add something?
Well, really quick.
Yeah.
Session Zero is really great, but make sure at least once a year you do Dungeon Master interviews so you can actually establish the connection and find out where you're going, and also any suggestions or complaints or anything, and it really helps get everybody back on the same page.
That's a great suggestion.
That is. For me, I actually piggyback a little bit off of what Dave said. I would absolutely concur. You don't have to do the whole thing. Also, what I would add to that is try developing improv skills. Not necessarily as an actor per se, but as a way of taking something that you've been given and finding a way to turn it and run with it. If it fits. Obviously, sometimes you're going to find players that, I have heard the term before, like main character syndrome and whatnot. You don't necessarily need to feed that, but if you start to find like, well, this comes from me knowing my players, for example. One of the games in which, and this is just kind of a joke, but it goes to the fact that I know my players. Brittany, for example, absolutely loves potatoes. And I threw that in there just as a way to, I knew I'd get a joke or a smile out of it or whatnot. If you know your player base, it's going to be way easier to do that improv and figure out, okay, well, I kind of know what they like. Let me get, maybe you want to get them to explore a little bit, but you get close to that point. Like, say, for example, they love military stuff, so maybe you don't go a full military campaign, but you start feeding them some information that looks like you're going to go in that direction. Once they start getting excited, they take that hook. Well, now you start to figure out, okay, where they want to go with it. And you can kind of give a little bit more and a little bit more, and then eventually you get something a little bit bigger.
So in addition to that, there is a technique you can look up. It's called yes and. It's an improvisation technique, and that is really helpful. So if your character introduces something, then you go yes and this, and this, and you can actually pulley them back to your main story or whatever, or even if everyone's off topic and talking about lunch that day, you can, okay, yes, and, pull them back into another direction.
That's a useful technique. In improv, you try not to shoot down your colleagues' suggestions, and in RPGs, that's a really good technique as well. So that way, by doing the yes and, you kind of learn how to roll with those. Are you going to say something?
Oh, yeah. So I do DM, not for a Lost Tribes game, but on my own. One of the things I find that helps is, especially if you like to world build, is there's no pressure, I think, in a game of unless you're playing at such points where your characters have so much power they can go anywhere in your world at any time. There's always, I think, that panic of the players being like, well, we want to go over there. And it's like, okay, but it's going to take some time for you to get there. And if you can kind of go with Jerome saying, improvise, okay, well, if you're going to head in that direction, here's what you need to do, to start going in that place. That can also give you the time between sessions to develop those things in order to go, okay, this is the thing that they're really interested in, instead of having to know exactly how the government of this kingdom works and why does it work this way, how is all this stuff going. You don't have to know that right out the gate. You could just know, okay, well, this domain is ruled by this group and this is what they have heard, and then you can just build off on that between games. You don't have to, don't feel like you need to have everything like the Silmarillion in your brain all at one time.
Yeah.
Build it as you go and just kind of use those improv skills to, to send the players on the direction they want to go in, but then when the scene ends, start building the set on your own, so that way okay, well, they're going to go to this town, they're going to go do this thing. I can put these things in their way that way you don't feel like, oh, I have to build a whole game for them on the spot.
So I've not DM'd as much as probably most of these people, but I usually DM for kids. And the best way that I've found to do it is you start with a city and let them explore and find out what they're interested in. You just have those improv skills for all the little people you have in there. And then once you find out their interests, then you dig and go from there. Especially for example, if you have a cleric or someone who has a deity, then you have to, oh goodness, we have to, have a pantheon now. But if you don't have anyone, then you don't need to start with your pantheon. And also, traveling is really fun because anything can happen when you're traveling. So if you had something planned, what George said, when they want to go in that direction, oh, well, actually I can just change that encounter a little bit and then they can go right there, so you don't have to throw away anything. Something that David does when he plans, he has like a notebook full of notes, and I think we've covered this much because he reprints the notes every single time. And there are things we've still not touched on from the first page of notes.
But like she said, I keep that. And then I can mold it so if the character suddenly meets somebody new and says, oh, I didn't have them meet here, but I can have them meet here. Reuse and recycle. It works every time.
Yes.
And that's another thing too with your world building is that it should change to reflect what the characters are into and what they're going for. Because if you plan too much ahead of time, it might feel like the players, when they go off the rails, like they're breaking the mechanics of the structure that you've built. But if they head off in a direction that makes you go, oh wait, actually, now I can take this idea. This character was a rogue who wanted to get into the Thieves Guild. That NPC I really wanted them to interact with that they're running away from. Now this person can be a high-level thief in the Thieves Guild that's helping them, or that's going to be like a betrayer. You know, you can move your pieces around to suit what your players are looking for. But because the more rigid it is, the harder it will be for you to go, wait, but Darth Vader was, he's the main villain, but I kind of want to move him over here, you know. So plan broadly, I think, is the best way of going for it.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Something that's come up a lot here is emphasizing the interaction between you and your players. And I just want to like mention that that's your audience. It's not necessarily like if you're streaming and people watch your games, then that's great. But your primary audience is your players, so they're the people that you want to keep engaged the most. If you have a specific world that you are really interested in building out and your players aren't really jiving with it, maybe you should just write a book. And then go from there. That's a different panel.
But it's also super important for the Dungeon Master to still have fun. Or else, because if the Dungeon Master isn't having fun, the players will have a more difficult time having fun. So it's finding that balance, which is DM interviews, session 0, finding out what everybody wants, and then building on that.
I was going to say something.
Finding the fun to you in that part. And then,
Correct.
And then moving on.
I was going to say something along that track. If you're world building, do it while you enjoy it. It's going to come through. So, like, if you have some aspect of your world that you enjoy, you think is interesting, build it. You're having your own fun, and your players are going to pick up on it when they get to that area. You're also going to pick up to if they venture into a part of your world that you didn't want to build. It'll come through. So, you know, I would say build while you enjoy it. You don't have to, you know, color all the way to the lines, but you know, do it while you enjoy it, and then give them what you built for the first session and see where it's headed from there.
So, just as an example, so David, the Tomes of the Chaos Bard starts off in a little town, and there were supposed to be some bandits in that town. Well, we did not go there. We went all the way to a bigger city, and David had to like play over here, and then we had to get back to that city, and eventually, I think 2.5 years later, we finally defeated those bandits, but they had leveled up, obviously, and we had to go through a different way, but David was able then to throw in some of the lore all along the way to try and get us to come back.
Is it working? Nope.
Well, that actually
Throw
brings
out
us
the
to
different bait.
the next point, actually. So bring them on up.
Yeah, so let's talk about when you're world building, how do you define the kind of world that you're trying to build? Let's talk about tone.
Theme and tone?
Yeah.
Well, for me, part of that's going to depend on the game you're playing, right from the jump. Dungeons and Dragons is inherently high fantasy, so the moment you say Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, you won't play D&D, you automatically know, okay, well, you're thinking probably Lord of the Rings, you're probably thinking maybe certain types of anime, like regular Lotus War or whatnot. Whereas if you pull something out from your bag of tricks, you're like, let's play Blade Runner. That's a movie. That's too okay. So you're looking at grim, you're looking at gritty, you're looking at some dystopian cyberpunk themes and identity crisis because of replicants and so on and so forth. That right there, if any of you have watched it on Netflix, Altered Carbon. Season 1 was amazing. The anime was fantastic. Season 2, not quite as good. But it still is good nonetheless, and it hit a lot on those very same tones. But where it differed, obviously, was like this serial immortality. Like, you could keep jumping into what they called sleeves, so long as they were available, which were just basically clone bodies, or other bodies, and you would attach your shard to it, and then you would just continue living on. So obviously there's some different tones there, as opposed to if you pulled out something vampire related, and that's going to be Vampire Diaries, Queen of the Damned, supernatural, or just supernatural genre in general, depending on how you spin it. So that's going to define a lot of the theme and tone you're going for, but you can still temper that in different ways. Like, for example, we were just talking about this earlier on. There's a game system out there called All Flesh Must Be Eaten. If you haven't heard of it, it's actually really cool. It's a pretty simple system to get and understand, and it's at its core zombie apocalypse. It's the first thing you think of. Walking Dead. It's the biggest hit that was out there. Well, they have other supplements for that. What if it was in the Old West? What if it was in Chinese mythology? What if it was sci-fi? Right? And they've got all these little subgenre books that you can add to it, and they of course give you movies that you can that help them form that basis from. So obviously that's going to change the tone, right? Okay, well, if it's zombie apocalypse in the Old West, okay, well, maybe all the zombie apocalypse is happening on the West Coast. News didn't travel quite as fast. Maybe it's still life, on the range when you go back east. Who knows? It just depends on how you're trying to set that tone and the idea for it. And then, of course, you can talk to the players and kind of vibe off of them a little bit and see what it is that when you throw the idea at them initially, like, oh, we want to play this. Do you have anything that's on your mind or something you want to do? I know for me, especially when I was younger, and working in a comic book store, for example, all the visual stimuli. Like, for example, when, I don't know if anybody here familiar with Witchblade comic? Okay. So when that first came out, it was eye candy for the girls and, of course, for the guys for different reasons. And anywhere you went online, because online was still, it was there, but it was not as big as it is now. But everybody had icons from that particular comic book or whatnot for very, so you knew that they were where they're getting their inspiration from. All these characters look like X, or all these characters look like this, or same thing with like Gladiator, for example, when that came out, and all the guys, I want my character to look like Russell Crowe. Those can all be versions of like a tone that you're looking for your character. Like, I want that brooding guy who lost his family for whatever reason. Or I want this lone gunman hitman kind of guy in a supernatural. So, I mean, it marinates well together once you have good communication and rapport with your players.
And I know for me, the big thing, session 0, you kind of talk about your tone, right? What kind of game do you want? More survival, right? Do you want more of a heavy battle? Do you want more political? I know originally when I started my show, it was very political. I had a lot of political stuff. My players love combat. So I had to shift gears a little bit once I figured out, okay, they enjoy combat more. Then I had to adjust it again because I got too much combat. There's that very slight thing, but definitely getting with your players, talking to them. The yearly interviews I do with my players as well helps me adjust that tone as well. Because one year, they were, like I said, really heavy into combat. Then there was the next year, maybe we need to tone down the combat. It's like, okay, well, let's shift gears. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to do more exploration? Do you guys want to do more political stuff? And we were able to adjust that to there. Tone changes all the time. How many times do you get ready for a game, you're like, I'm so excited for this, and then you get there and you're like, my tone has changed a little bit, right? Getting the feel of the table also helps. There's been a lot of times that we get ready to record, and our tone has changed. So we have to adjust the game the way we play. And so that'd be my suggestion too. Get a feel, make sure you know your players, yearly interviews. Some people like doing monthly, even texting. These guys message all the time. Messaging all the time. Getting
We're
each
just
other.
sightseeing going this weekend.
Yeah.
How we've been here.
And that's not a bad thing. Keeping in contact. Some people don't like the contact. Some people like face-to-face. Figure it out. I'm a more face-to-face kind of person.
Yeah, so kind of what they're talking about with the texting thing. We have side RPGs that is solely messaging. So, and it's really fun when you can only meet once a month or bi-week, however often you're able to meet. You can, if you have a player that wants more, you can very easily have a game over messages.
Or if that player is going to be out of town the next time you're playing, you can kind of do a little side RP on what has your character been doing.
Yeah, what have they been doing that way? So when they come back, in, they have actually contributions to make to the next game.
So, totally not required. It's a fun option.
But did anybody have any other questions, tone, or?
Yeah.
Any tips for keeping track of all the world building you have? Because
There's a bunch of tools for that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably touch on that in the next panel too. But for me, I have a lot of notepads, like Word doc files. In fact, Brittany was asking me about this a couple weeks ago. If you're anything like me, or just in general, sometimes you can be somewhere and an idea is going to hit you, right? Maybe you woke up from a dream, maybe you saw a funny name or something while you're working, maybe you heard a song and it prompted something. Take that moment, type it down real quick. Like especially if you think it's geared toward that game, jot it down real quick, put it in a notepad, put it in that game file. And reflect on it, obviously, again, let it marinate, whatever, so you can think about it. But jot it down so that way you have that point of inspiration. Then when you have a moment to circle back to it, that's when you can start fleshing it out. And I find, for me personally, that seems to work the best. A lot of times what I'll do is I will, I'm a big visual guy, so I love movies, I love TV shows, and I love music. And so a lot of times, a lot of those will coalesce somewhere in the back of my mind. And what was it I just did? I just ran a game here recently that I had based it off of something I'm not going to waste time on it. But anyways, it essentially was the idea, I think it was a TV show like that, some characters from it. Obviously I didn't lift the whole plot, but for me it was like, what if this character was alive and got stuck in this, right? So I kind of took the same premise, I'll just make it up on the fly. Like say it was Tony Soprano, in the midst of dealing with all of his trouble with the family and the FBI and blah, 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 and zombie apocalypse. Something like that. Like where does he diverge at that point as a character? And when you start, when you hit that tonal, but that story shift, now you start coming up with something completely original. Now you start, and then you'll find that when you have that first question, that what if or whatever, now you start seeing a bunch of branches come out. And as that happens, jot them down on your notepad, whatever comes up. And then start fleshing it out from there. Like, for example, okay, well, how would he get around this? How would he get around that? Okay, well, if these two things are true, what about this? What would this start to look like? What plight or strengths have starting to come up? So as you start answering some of those questions around at least the center of your idea, now you're going to start to see more and more, to keep with the analogy, like healthy tree branches, sprouting from that. And you're gonna, and if you're anything like me, I love doing that. You'll start to go, you're just gonna start getting inspired and just writing more like what ifs and how did this happen? What does this, what does this mean? And then you hop online and do a little bit of research. Wave hi to the FBI, because now maybe you're veering into areas where they're going to start questioning. It's like, why is he looking up X, Y, Z? But no, stuff like that. And I think you'll find that when you start training your brain to just absorb, you don't want to say, and maybe not do a thing. Just be open to it first, and then you can kind of prune and pare some of the ideas to keep the focus on the game and how you want it. That would be my suggestion based on what I do.
I also think this is a great question for Mike. What apps are out there for great story building and world building?
I don't know.
Or note-taking.
I use Google Drive for a lot.
World Anvil's another one.
Yeah, the reason she's asking is I went on this little foray with the net for a while to try to find an AI-based, like what are current AI-based campaign tools, and I wasn't super happy with anything. So other than just having, like I subscribe to One AI, and I use it I actually use it for ideas. I use it to rephrase what I think of in like maybe a more high fantasy way or scientific way or something like that. But I mean, I'm old school. I'm with Jerry here. It's, notepad, documents, record what you have.
Same.
I use Google Docs mainly because one, I can just have it on my phone, but also if you use like the headlines in order to make like different, like headline 1, headline 2, headline 3, you can make something that's very easily searchable. So when if you're like, okay, you're going to this continent, okay, click on that, and then it brings you immediately to that. And then if you do like the sub-headline for, okay, this city, okay, well I can click on this, right, here's this thing. If you build your, if you do your world building with something that is very easily searchable, because I used to do all mine in notepads, like just write it down in paper. But the problem was when I had 4 notepads and the players were like, hey, what's the name of that NPC that we met 3 games ago? Wait, hold on. It became a mess. So
10 minutes later.
On that subject, OneNote. I use OneNote like a madman, but it's essentially just hyper-notepad. So, but it's searchable and categorized.
I really like the idea of building a wiki for your game.
Which we've done that for some, yeah.
We've done that for some of it, yeah.
It does take a bit to stay up on. Like I have a wiki for the vampire game we ran. It's kind of out of date at this point.
Every game it's out of date.
Yeah, and as others can attest, for the D&D game that I'm running, there's a trove of information on that one, because the idea behind that, to that point, I was trying to put stuff, the term you hear sometimes in banking is evergreen, meaning it's revolving. It's something that's never going to expire. And I'm trying to put information on there that isn't necessarily story related, that it's more like what you would find in a book, like here's your deities, or here's what this this area is like, or blah 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 blah, or some visual references and whatnot. Not so much of like what the characters experience at that point.
Also, making a Discord for your game is really great. We've organized in another game we played that we have important NPCs and all their information plus picture, and it's also searchable. So you can do hashtags in there, and also it's a great place to keep your notes for players. Have something we've just started doing is have one player assigned to take notes that game, so that you can go and have a backlog of what your session was. And that's really helpful for world building as well. So you then remember, oh, that's what happened that game.
Yeah, and if you do it something like that, like Discord, like we do that too, and we have a rule where everybody participates in taking the notes. So it fosters 2 things, and I bring this up a lot because I realized the old trope where you had like 1 or 2 people who always had the notes, so they always knew what was going on, and then like the other 2 or 3 people that showed up to game, were the ones that were always, where do we leave off at? Where do we go? I had this note about diesel. What did diesel mean? And they don't remember. It gives you not only a mental point that you left off at if you share in the workload of the notes, but then when you're dumping it into a repository that everybody can access, now everybody has a way of doing word searches and finding what it is.
And if you miss a game, you can find out what happened.
Exactly. So it's way easier to keep up on the game guys.
And I know for me, what helped me organize my lore and stuff is recording it.
Same.
Before we started the podcast, I recorded all my sessions because I suck at notes. I suck at writing. I don't like writing. I don't have good handwriting.
He couldn't remember anything until he started recording it and he listened to it while he was at work.
Because I work as an electrician. I'm a hands-on guy and I get busy. So popping in a headphone, listening to the last session, or even I record my notes sometimes too. So when I'm getting ready for a session, I'll listen to it and be like, oh, I remembered this, or I forgot about that.
And it wasn't fancy recording. It was just a little thing that has like a little radio thing, and it was recorded on a micro USB.
So then I can put it
Replaying,
on.
rewatching, revisiting your games is also a great way to kind of pick up on different clues that could help you like build out different little side.
I don't know how many times I've gone back and listened to the past episodes and been, oh, they really like that NPC. Now I'm going to surprise them with this NPC right here. Why are you here? Well, that's a good question. How about we figure that out?
We have an NPC that everybody loves. His name is Swindle You Blind.
He's a traveling merchant that they have a magic card that they can call and they can buy stuff from.
A calling card that literally calls.
Yeah, anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, we can move on to
Okay,
the next section.
yeah, let's talk about, sorry, did someone say?
No, I was just saying, in prepping to do this one, I had some things I brought to say, but I said you have an agenda, so.
Okay, well, let's
The guy have an agenda.
talk about how you figure out where your stories come from. How do you generate your adventure?
Do you want to start with that one? And where do you start your stories from? I can tell you where you started your werewolf game from. Phantasmagoria.
That was hot in the 90s. God, I'm so old.
It also dates us, thanks.
Yeah, well, you're right there with me. So. Well, the thing is, it's been a while since I've run a game, but usually I build a game from playing another game. I have an idea, and I'm like, I want to explore this, and then I just start daydreaming about it. That's literally how I build games, which is a hard concept to pass along because I'm a lucid dreamer, so I literally dream about it. But I spend my spare time daydreaming. What if? And then, I'll just take you through my process. It starts with that, like, here's an idea. So like this one werewolf game, maybe the best werewolf game I ever ran, which Jerry was in. I had this idea of like a werewolf. It was I had a few NPC ideas, which were also part of the pack, and it fleshed out and fleshed out and fleshed out, and then I'm just going to read in the things I was going to say anyway. When I build out, this is how I world build. When I build out, you're going to end up with different factions, right? Different groups, different kingdoms, different, clans of vampires, whatever it is you're playing. And there's two maxims that go in there whenever I build a world. One of them is nobody's a villain in their own story. Unless, your villain is like, you're playing an Amine, your villain is Lucifer or something. But other than that, everybody, even the worst people in real life have always had their own reasons for doing what they've done. So my BBEGs have reasons, and sometimes they do. It's fun because sometimes I'll have them do something good. Sometimes I'll have them save an orphanage. And my players are like, I thought they were the bad guy. And it's like, they're not that bad. They just hate you.
I feel conflicted already.
The other maxim I always use is that everybody's wrong about something. And I mean that in groups, not necessarily like a person, but everybody's, nobody's their own villain, and everybody's wrong about something. So if I have a group that's martial, right, like this is a wartime kingdom, and they have their great military might, they're very proud of their army, stuff like that. Okay, well maybe they're kind of conquistadors, maybe not everybody thinks that about them, maybe they help the sick, but maybe they only help certain of the sick. Maybe they don't like these people. Maybe they're racist in some way. Even if they're nominally good, there needs to be some sort of conceit that they're wrong about. Because if they're not wrong about anything, they're just player characters. They're your own player characters. And then you, as a DM, you hate to see them fail. You hate to see them beaten, right? Because they're good guys. They're my good guys. Don't do that. Make them all wrong in some way. And then, the players will eventually figure that out. And that makes a more engaging world than either just running your own PCs under a humane NPC or creating just a flat villain that, people are just there to kill. So that's what I have to say.
And that's all I have to say.
That's all I have to say about that. Oh, let me bring in the Alabama accent. Okay.
I think as far as for that kind of driving the world through story, or where the story ideas come from, I think a lot of times you'll be inspired from places that aren't always just, because in the end we're talking about playing a game, but a lot of times read books, watch movies, play video games, even things you don't like, you can sometimes spark an idea of something that would be okay, I don't like this, how could I fix it? And that might be a way of you taking something that doesn't really work, but by approaching it this way, it might make you appreciate the thing that you didn't like, or you'll come up with something that's way different because of it. But I think it's also important to, build a game that is something you're interested in. So if you're interested in romance, having a story be about a romance, okay, we'll start from there, but then, how do you want it to go? There's been so many romances out in the world, from classic to modern. If you're going to build one of those as the kernel of your game, how do you approach it? And then kind of going from that base idea, just see how other people handle it, because yeah, a lot of my not just in my game stuff, but also my comics comes from I liked this thing, how would I do my version of that? Or I don't like this thing, how do I fix that? And so I think that can also be just a place to pull an idea from is, oh, this is weird. How would I approach this to get away from that weird? And you might find something that no one's touched before, which could be really exciting for the players.
Consume media.
Yeah.
Also, one of the common phrases we like to use is, oh, well, this is the traditional thing. Let's twist it in this way. So it's let's do Romeo and Juliet, but with vampires. Or let's do Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but they're werewolves. Or, there's tons of different media out there that's been twisted in a different way, and eventually you keep twisting and you find something unique.
How many of you know who Shinichiro Watanabe is? He's the director of Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, Carol and Tuesday. He did a Reddit or Ask Me Anything, and somebody asked him, what would you recommend to those of us who want to be storytellers, who want to be directors, especially of in animation, what would you tell us to do? And he said, watch movies, listen to music that's outside of the scope of just the things that you like. Because if you only are, like if you want to do like a D&D thing, but you're only consuming like D&D and fantasy stuff, you're going to end up kind of just making something that's kind of similar to the stuff you're already making. You know, so watch Westerns, watch foreign films, watch TV shows, watch anything you can, you know, read books, because you might find an idea somewhere that you can go, oh, I can pull this into my, I can take this horror story, this kernel of this idea, and bring it into my fantasy thing and turn it into something that is unique. And so I think about him a lot when I'm writing just anything. It's, you know, finding something in everything. Yeah.
I ran a campaign. This is a perfect example of that. I was part of a, I don't know if you guys know what the camera is, but they had an online chapter, and I ran their Mage the Awakening game. And I had watched, have you ever seen Anthony Hopkins' version of Titus Andronicus? It's a Shakespeare play. It's his first tragedy. It's his bloodiest tragedy. But the theme of it is basically the heroes. In the start of the play, you have heroes and villains, and by the end, the heroes have done such atrocious things that they have victimized the original villains. And by the end, you realize they swap places. So I took it as a personal, you know, quest.
Shakespeare's a great person to rip from.
Yeah. So I took it as a quest over the course of a year. I did that to my mage game. I just, like, it was a challenge to myself. Like, can I make them the villains? And they just slid along the path. And then by the time we got to the big blowout, the end of my term as a storyteller, I had one of my players write me. Like, she's like, here are the 8 ways you made me betray my core character concept. I'm like, I didn't make you do anything. So, I mean, you know, that's another thing you can do with your game.
Speaking of which, as we've mentioned before, your player characters are a great way to find things to draw from.
Yeah,
Especially-
Jerome's really good at this.
So, for example, in our World of Darkness mixed game, I play a character who is very religious. She's Catholic. She's an immortal, like Highlander immortal, but she's part of the Society of Leopold, which in World of Darkness is basically a vampire hunting religious group that's based out of the Catholic Church. Totally fictional, but I mean, as far as I know. But
If you guys know me, I suspect.
but she's also in a subgroup of that Inquisition that is meant to kind of help supernatural creatures who are innocent. And we have another player who plays a demon. And we had some very interesting run-ins and some very interesting clashing between our characters. That set up a lot of interesting conflict for our story. So look for ways that you can maybe not pit your characters against each other, but create friction that they'll have to role play through.
That is a good point. When you're, especially that session 0 stuff, ask your players to write, like, okay, what do your characters know about the way that they grew up and the things that they, you know, how did they arrive at level 1 or session 1? And then you can then take from that and go, oh, you mentioned that they have a sister who went missing. Okay, well, wouldn't it be cool if that character showed up later and was like the villain? That person we've been alluding to hasn't been around, it turns out is the big bad in the tower.
And player characters love it and hate it at the same time.
Because that's the thing that TTRPGs do that no other like game thing can do, is that the story is about your players, and that's what makes it so special. Like the first time I ever did something like that, where a character's backstory came back to and popped up in the game, like you can't get that in any video game, no matter how great the writing is. Like there's only so much planning the game can do to incorporate that, but because you're running the game, you can tailor your story and your conflicts to the players and makes them feel like they're the lead actor in the scene. And sometimes having that spotlight put on them can be both terrifying but also super fun. Yeah.
So to throw that out there, since you guys were talking about character builds or backstory, one of the things you can do is also quietly write your own backstory for that character, and find ways to have it tie into what they believe. Because as we full well know, like I'm a prime example of this. Like 2.5 years ago, I found out I was 49 at the time. I found out I actually had a brother. I had no idea I had a brother. You know, and he living his life and whatever have you. A couple of years prior, when I first started the Marvel Superheroes game, I quietly developed a joint backstory that none of the players were aware of. I didn't have a set time when I was going to reveal it, but because one particular player was getting kind of snooty with some of the main NPC at that point, she finally had it. And because he was super suspicious, a conspiracy type guy, you know, like, well, how did you find us, blah, 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 blah. So game 2, they find out that they're all related to one another. They're all half brothers and sisters. And so immediately everybody at game is like, and they all
But
kind
I
of have
have
their
parents.
they all, exactly, I already have parents. Yeah, but, and then of course that immediately starts raising the question of, hang on a second, where was Dad? What was Mom doing? You know, and then it's like, wait a minute, how am I related to you? And then it's the weird feelings, like, you know, and then of course they can grow into it like as a family sort of thing. And it's actually been for me, it's been a fun dynamic watching them kind of take that in and actually just play with it. You know, again, it's the yes and sort of improv. I didn't do anything, you know, out of the ordinary from their character's background, but I managed to weave it enough with what I had that, you know, okay, well, here's why your mom is no longer around, or here's why, you know, what happened to your father, or whatever have you, and gave just enough vagueness to everything for them to go, wait a minute, there's too many gaps there, Mom wasn't honest, you know, or something, and then of course it raises more questions for role playing. Just, I mean, there were whole games where they were exploring that. They weren't doing anything else. They were just trying to figure out like how they were linked, and as they slowly progressed through the stories, and they find more siblings that were out there. It's like, man, Dad was terrible. You know? and then it starts causing other issues like, well, why did he do these things? Why did he do this? And well, if he was an alien, is he like trying to build up like this force of superhumans that you know will protect the world, or was he just doing this to like take it over or whatever? So it's just you know, whenever you can build something up like that and throw it at your players and they're receptive to it, it can lead to a lot of good things that are unexpected.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. Do we have any final thoughts? Oh, do you want to say something?
Oh no, I was like wondering like what the time was.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Any questions, like character related, anything, your ongoing stories you want us to pitch at us?
Any ideas for an evil campaign?
An evil
Yes.
campaign.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Like where
The players are
The
evil.
evil.
Oh,
Tell about Street Fighter.
oh boy.
That was my first thought. So one of the games I ran, everybody out here, every time you guys play a game, I'm sure, it's, well, you're the good guys in some form or fashion, right? Maybe you're Robin Hood, you know, you've got a heart of gold, but you want to stick it to the man. Sometimes you're just lawful good, straight to the core, like you're standing up for everybody. Well, this particular game, I was running Street Fighter, the storytelling game. Yes, it's an RPG. And I decided, I said, you know what? We're going to make bad guy characters. And it's going to be a criminal empire campaign. And at that point, it was like our version of Street Fighter meets Breaking Bad. It's, you know, it's, meets the Sopranos. It's like, okay, well, if you were the kingpin of some syndicate, what is it gonna look like? Oh, okay, well, here's what I can draw from, here's what I'm gonna do. So you would make a great, right-hand person. Oh, you would make a great assassin. Oh, we need this person over here because they've got contacts with so-and-so. I mean, yeah, it can be a lot of fun. But you want to set some limits too. Like, you don't want to go, this is where people who are big fans of murder hobos are going to just go absolutely crazy. And you don't want to promote that. But again, it's not like, shows like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or any of these other shows that the premise is focused on the bad guys. They don't necessarily see it as bad. Right? They see it as kind of like what Mike was saying before, is that they're not the villains. They're sticking it to the real villains. Maybe it's the government. Maybe it's this other group or whatever have you. So come at it from that premise. Obviously, you're still going to have some of the same foibles characters are going to run into. Tony, had a problem with the lady folk, which would sometimes lead to issues at home. Or somebody rubbed him the wrong way, and it caused him to go off, Breaking Bad, maybe a deal went wrong and whatever have you. So you can still structure all that the same way. But the premise, obviously, is you're looking at this and going, okay, well, we're stepping into the shoes of somebody who's bad, in that sense. And what is that going to look like? And that can be fun. I mean, if you look at Grand Theft Auto, for example, there's scarcely moral fibers in any of those characters. But you play them, and you gleefully go around knocking cars off the street and gunning people down for more cash. And again, I'm not saying be murder hobo, but there were stories behind each of those, side quests and whatnot. It's a good way to look at it. It's totally doable. And as a story palette cleanser, it might be a good way to mix things up sometimes.
I think what Jerome's saying is 100% true. The thing about doing an evil campaign, though, is that you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page about what you're doing, because if you're going to do something like that, you want to structure it to where everybody is there's still rules to the world, and that there's still consequences for the things that the characters are doing.
Yeah.
Because if it becomes too chaotic, it can sometimes feel like the world might just be there for your characters to just pick up and smash on the ground, which is not
too cartoony.
Yeah, but that could also not be fun for you as the storyteller, or the DM. Is that you put a lot of time into your world. You didn't put these characters in there to just get massacred en masse. So I think still you want the characters to have some sort of direction,
Purpose.
Yeah, even if it's an evil purpose, to use Breaking Bad as an example. Walter White is doing this because he wants to leave something behind for his family. That's the reason why he starts doing the bad thing. But then the bad thing consumes him, and he becomes a worse person as a result. If the characters are going into some criminal empire, come up with a reason why are they doing this, and it's not just for the lulz. If it's for the lulz, then it will be hard to make certain things inexcusable. And you also want to make sure that you're checking in with your players and making sure that we understand what we're doing. And if there's a character who is oh well, I'm just going to betray the group, if everyone knows it, that can cause friction in the group as well. If it feels like there's one person who's throwing the game on purpose for their own benefit, that's where you still want them to unify and play together as a unit, but it almost is more. I mean, the same thing happens in a regular game too.
Yeah.
I've had players that are chaotic. They're oh well, I'm chaotic neutral. That gives me carte blanche to just take everything I feel like, or murder anybody I want to, and that can be to the detriment of the game when everyone else is in there to play a heroic character. So I think setting limits is important.
Yeah, especially when it comes to PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Try to keep it, even if you say you're playing a Criminal Empire campaign, you still try to keep it PvE, player versus environment.
Mm-hmm.
But keep it. It's going to dispel if they're really into the scene or scenes, it could be plural, And if they have to stop and ask, like, try to get around that, just set the ground rule ahead of time, like, okay, if this is the way it's gonna go, then okay, but otherwise, let's not constantly try to headhunt each other, because if everything becomes PvP, you're not gonna get one story, everybody's just gonna, you know,
The
crush.
game's gonna blow up.
Yeah, like he said, they've gotta have a reason to all be together.
And you want to still be friends with your players. You know,
Yeah,
the game.
yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've played in multiple Street Fighter campaigns, and Street Fighter is the best PvP system I've ever seen. Like, you don't actually need a storyteller, it's all right there. You could have maps between it, but in every game I've played, I mean, there's the initial game, like usually game one, like dog sniffing tails, like we might fight to figure out where we're at with each other, but once the story starts, you know, we want a cohesive game. Even in the Evil campaign, you know, in that game, you know, I played the Kingpin, and I had a couple of assassin other player characters, and I put caps on them, like, you know, like don't murder no one, you know, let's have some stories.
Yeah, again, if you're doing like a bad guy or criminal empire, The Sopranos TV show on HBO Max, if you haven't seen it, I would watch it. It's a great way to look at how to structure something like that. Yes, they are bad people. Yes, they do bad things. But this thing of ours is not something for everybody to see and hear. And if you're out there doing the scene from the first Terminator, where you're just marching down through a police station, gunning people down, you've already jumped the shark. You know, so if you keep it with something like that, with that mentality of like, okay, we do these things, but this isn't for the general populace to understand, you're probably going to get a lot better results out of it. So I think that's, we're over, but the other people in here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for spending an hour with us. We hope
Yep.
you've had a good time.
Don't forget your free
Yeah,
Yeah,
come
we have
come
free
and get some
stuff.
swag. This says Legacy. This is our superhero team from the Marvel Superheroes game. Ashland by Night is our Vampire the Masquerade game that is currently on hiatus while we're playing another World of Darkness. And then some Lost Tribes gaming swag. So if you'd like some magnets and stuff, come on up.
And then our next panel is at 6, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll be in
so-
here again at 6.
Yeah,
talking
same room,
about,
same everything. If you guys want to
more
come, please
gaming
do.
stuff.
That one's actually focused more on getting a group, building a group, finding new people, and how to run those games.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
you
the
You
guys.
guys all for coming.
I noticed you don't make swag for games I'm in.
Oh, these were all old. We haven't done anything new.
Leftover
Yeah.
stuff.
We just didn't think you needed any swag, Mike.
I am swag.
It sounds like it's good.
You're your own swag.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds good.
Hi, Kelly.
Yeah, you bet.
What is, do we have like a plan? Oh, yeah, shut off.
Oh, yeah.
We're entering to it.
Yes, the plan for tonight, we were going to go to Anzio's.
Okay, because I need to go, you know, not abandon my kid. That would be something.
Whatever.
Are you trying to be a good dad? You trying to look out for kids? God.